Good morning, good evening, and afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sommelier. Welcome back to Sommelier, I should say. Your tastemaker for every little thing. My name is Bria, and today we're going to be talking about a couple of the basics and a little bit about why I like wine so much. This one is for all you non-wine drinkers out there, and those of you who kind of just want to know what the hullabaloo is about. What is this whole sommelier thing about? Sommelier thing about? What is wine? Why is it so special and unique? And I'm gonna tell you all about my perspective on those things. We're also gonna talk about how to determine quality from wine. So how we can determine whether or not a wine is high quality or not based on factors outside of the bottle. I'm gonna skip ahead and tell you the best way to find out is tasting it, but you can't taste every bottle of wine. Who wants to open every bottle of wine in the world to find out what it tastes like? If you don't want to do that, there's some things that you can keep in mind to help determine whether or not a bottle of wine is quality or not, or going to be something that you like or not. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. And then at the end, we are going to talk about some of my own wine recommendations that I have: red wine, white wine, and I might even have a rosé. A couple of them are back here on the bar. But let's talk about some basics before I tell you why I like wine so much. For the first thing is, I'm going to talk about what a sommelier is, or like a wine expert. And a wine expert is a sommelier. It's basically what that word means. If you Google it, it's going to say it's a wine steward, but we're all talking about the exact same thing. It's a person that knows a lot about wine. So I had mentioned before in an earlier video that you can find a sommelier in like a dining room setting traditionally. Think of like a really fancy restaurant. More often than not, they have sommeliers, look at me. They have sommeliers that walk around the dining room, they curate the list of wines that they hand you, and they also work with other wineries or other growers to be able to stock the wine bar for the restaurant. So that is what a traditional sommelier does. In addition to that though, you could be a sommelier and work in like a spirits company or something. Think of like the senior director or the regional head of Ray and Nephews, for instance. Sometimes those folks who work in like the distribution side of the house, they're also sommeliers, just to have like an additional context on what they're selling. So it's really cool. And it's super interesting if you are interested in the food and beverage industry. I myself, I have never been super interested in food and beverage. I just like wine and I wanted to learn more about it. So let me talk to you a little bit about what wine is, and then we will talk about why it's so special and unique. So at the very like table stakes, wine is fermented grapes. So you may think, okay, if it's just fermented grapes, can I just go to the grocery store and ferment some of the grapes that I get from like what we call like table grapes? No, you cannot. Those grapes actually do not have nearly enough sugar to be able to ferment them and create alcohol and turn them into wine. What you need are grapes from the Vitis vinifera varietal. Yes, the Vitis vinifera varietal. And actually, you've heard of a lot of the names from the Vitis vinifera varietal before. So think about names like Syrah, Malbec, Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir. These are all names of the different types of Vitis vinifera grapes that are then fermented through various processes to be turned into wine. So even to take a step back, another way to think of it, think of like apples. You've got Fuji apples, you've got Granny Smith apples, there are yellow apples, red apples, green apples. Think of like your table grapes as almost like your Fuji apples or whatever, and your Vitis vinifera grapes is like a completely different type of apple. Same thing with grapes. Vitis vinifera are the grapes that you make wine with. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk more about the grapes. So Chardonnay, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, Pinot Noir, all of those grapes are different types of noble grapes. That's what they call them, the noble grapes, because they're such popular wines. Anyway, so if you're looking for wines, it's probably gonna be one of those 6, but there are like a lot more than just those 6 when it comes to wine. We'll talk about them as we continue this journey, but basically those are your Vitis vinifera grapes that you're gonna hear about a lot. Because we're talking about grapes, I really wanna emphasize that what happens to the grapes, just like with people, what happens to you as you grow up really impacts the outcomes of when you are an adult. Same thing with grapes, if you could believe it. So what happens with the grapes, whether they're grown in a hot climate, a cold climate, a climate with a lot of shade, a climate with a lot of rain, a climate with a lot of sun, that all impacts the way that the grapes are gonna taste once they've fully matured and then been turned into wine. So when you go to a vineyard or a tasting, you're seeing rows and rows and rows of grapes. All the different factors that the land provides, and just really factors, period, that touch the grapes, that impact the way they taste in the end is, now we're gonna give you a vocab word that you're gonna follow, that it's gonna be important later, terroir, T-E-R-R-O-I-R, terroir. The terroir is a French word that means all the factors that impact the way the wine tastes. Another thing you want to know about terroir is that terroir is different everywhere. And some grapes, some, Malbec versus Cabernet Sauv, like some grapes grow or really thrive in certain environments and other grapes don't do so well in those environments. For instance, like in Argentina. Argentina is really famous for their Malbec and Cab Sauvignon because the environment that fosters grapes and the Malbec and Sauvignon varietals just really tend to thrive there. And the same thing can be said about every single part of the world. So let's say you're in Germany, the Riesling grape, which is a really cold climate in the wintertime, it can be really frigid. Like some grapes will really not thrive there, but grapes like the Riesling grape is really gonna thrive there. Really, anywhere you think of in the world, for the most part, you can grow wine from. Actually, fun fact, every single one of the 50 states in the United States of America have wine growers. They do grow wine there. While whether or not it's good, I can't tell you, but they do grow wine there, and that is an important thing to keep in mind. I think you guys are kind of starting to get where I'm coming at. So if you want to determine quality when it comes to wine, if you want to understand what is quality and what is not, you are going to know, basically, or I'm going to tell you what type of grapes grow really well in certain areas. The quality of grapes from the land are one of the largest indicators of how the wine is actually going to taste. My relationship with wine is also really intimately connected to my relationship with travel, because anywhere you travel, it's like experiencing a different dimension of the place you're going to, because in addition to seeing the beautiful landscape and the imagery of the place you're at, or like the famous landmarks, you can also taste the same things that people thousands of years ago were also tasting. You can taste the characteristics of the wine that people hundreds and thousands of years were tasting. Some of those, in I think Australia, some of those grapevines, they've been alive for 500 or 600 or 700 years. Let me fact check that, but I know hundreds of years some of these grapes have been producing and then going dormant and then producing again. It's genuinely so amazing to me. And the cool thing about this relationship between the land and wine is that it doesn't just apply to wine. So I just came back from a trip from Jamaica, one of my favorite places, and Jamaica is known for its rum. So if you do not know, rum is just fermented sugarcane. And the terroir of Jamaica, the dramatic landscape, the flowing rivers, the tropical climate, all make the Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean incredibly attractive places for sugarcane to grow. But what makes Jamaican rum special is that the land there is different from another advantageous rum producing place, like maybe Costa Rica. You can grow the exact same strain of sugarcane in Costa Rica and Jamaica, literally the exact same strain in both of those places, and then the sugarcane itself will come out tasting different. It really is genuinely amazing. Same thing with the same Cabernet Sauvignon grapes grown in Napa Valley and the same Cabernet Sauvignon grapes grown in the Loire Valley in France. It could be the exact same, but they're gonna taste completely different, which is why it is so important, as I said at the top, for you to taste your wine so you know what you like, because it's gonna be different everywhere you go. You can get a Cabernet Sauvignon that you absolutely love from, I'd say Argentina, that seems to be on my mind today, Argentina or Brazil. And you could have a Cabernet Sauvignon that you absolutely can't stand from another place. It really depends on the year, the vintage, and also the terroir of the land and what you personally like, what you're personally into. That is what a somm is, and a little bit why I like wine so much. If you're watching this and you're just not a wine fan, first of all, good job for making it to the end of my little speech. Thank you. And secondly, you're not gonna love every part of the world that you're gonna visit, and you're not gonna love every wine that you taste. I know I certainly do not love every wine that I taste, even though some of it is really, really good and some of it is really, really not for me. So please, I just wanna encourage you to keep trying until you find what you like. And I've got a couple of recommendations for early or new wine drinkers that I wanna introduce. So my first one, my family, if they're watching this, knows this is like our family staple for wine, okay? It is from a winery called Ménage à Trois. Ménage à Trois. It is a red blend from California. And I gave this to a friend of mine who was like, Bria, I don't really like wine. And I said, try this. It's pretty much, it's a wine that is very appealing. It's not super polarizing. It's incredibly smooth and well blended. It's from Napa Valley, which I am partial to, being from the Bay Area. And yeah, if you're just looking for like a starter wine that you think you might like, I think you should try this. I'm not gonna promise that you're gonna love it, but I can say that it is an incredibly approachable and affordable wine. I think it retails for about 11 bucks a bottle. I think you can get it from Costco or from Total Wine or just really any wine store. It's very, very popular. So that's the first one, Ménage à Trois. The second one I've got for you is a Chardonnay from Meiomi. So Meiomi is really, really famous for their Pinot Noir, which I would also highly recommend. Incredibly approachable, delicious, yummy, yum. But they also have different strains of Chardonnay. I recently just got into this Chardonnay. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna promise you're gonna love it, but Chardonnays are known for being really buttery and smooth, and these are also really buttery and smooth. So that's my red and my white recommendation for you all. I'm not gonna promise you're gonna love it, but again, give it a shot, see what you think. Let me know in the comments how you feel, or if you're just like, honestly, this wine whole thing is not for me, because we will be talking about spirits as we continue in our sommelier journey. Oh, yes. So back to my red wine blend. So a blend just means, if you don't know, like obviously there's no Cabernet Sauvignon or like any specific wine or varietal name in here. So a blend just means they take different strains of grapes and they mix them together before they are fermented into the wine. So you cannot make your own blend at home by taking a Cabernet Sauvignon and a Pinot Noir, pouring it together and say, hey, we have a blend. That's not how that works. The way it works is you take the grapes from the Pinot Noir grapes, you take the Malbec grapes or whatever you're gonna blend it with, you strain them and you put them together in the same tank, and they are fermented together. And that is what creates an absolute, like a beautiful blend. Oftentimes that's the goal. The goal is a beautiful blend, but that's how you make a blend. Anyway, so if you want the approachable wine experience, please check those two out for starters. And that is it for now. Please like and subscribe for more content like this. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Sommelier for short form content. And I will see you next time when we will be talking about sparkling wines. I'm talking champagne, I'm talking Prosecco, I'm talking Cava, and I'm explaining it all. Thank you so much for your time. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. See you soon. Bye.